Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. For the first story today, I want to discuss this rumor, the Star Wars rumor on Latino Review. Now, the rumor is that George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy were spotted having lunch with Daniel Day-Lewis. Was it a friendly lunch or were they talking Star Wars Episode 7? Fantastic rumor. I'm sure all of us wish it were true. But I have to say we should all take it with a meteor-sized grain of salt because Latino Review's credibility is kind of in the toilet right now. They once were, I believe they were once a respected site, but in an effort to stay competitive in the ever-expanding arena of pop culture news, Latino Review has posted a number of rumors that have turned out to be totally false and never credible at any point. But this one is just too good not to discuss. So, Daniel Day-Lewis, would he ever take a role in the Star Wars franchise? My feeling is that if he were to take the role, that would be game over. They would be instant classics. I mean, who would not be excited about that? I think that there would be no amount of criticism you could really levy at the new trilogy because, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis, no matter what he does, I can't imagine him not doing a good job, even if everything else around him were bad. But to see Daniel Day-Lewis in such a role, an Obi-Wan type role, or, you know, maybe a villain. He's a very good villain, as he's proven numerous times. You know, very good. You know, he started out doing, you know, Last of Mohicans, doing some action. But to have Daniel Day-Lewis in a Star Wars film, I mean, I almost feel bad for Benedict Cumberbatch. He would totally eclipse him. The news is just that amazing. Or maybe they were just having a lovely lunch because, of course, Kathleen Kennedy produced Lincoln, which Daniel Day-Lewis stars in. But why would George Lucas be there? Unless in retirement he's just fanboying out and deciding who he can meet. But I just think, you know, if J.J. Abrams were to go that route, that would be such a coup and really would put Star Wars back on top to land an actor of that caliber. Because we're starting to even get to the point where we're recycling actors, which I'm not too keen on. I feel like, you know, you have to pick your movie character and stick with it, and that's it. If you chose poorly, you chose poorly. But I would totally geek all out. There's no end to the geeking I would do about Daniel Day-Lewis in a Star Wars movie. And so I say, offer the man as much money or cobbling, you know, materials that he needs to woo him over, because it would just make my day. So that's the first story. As untrue and ridiculous as it might be, it's nice to dream at least for just a few minutes. All right, so the second story of the day, I got so excited. Hold on, I have to check my notes. I got so excited about Daniel Day-Lewis in Star Wars. Yes, Charlie Hunnam quit 50 Shades of Grey. Now, I'm not incredibly surprised. The official statement coming out of Universal is he just doesn't have the time to do it. The rumor is that he got freaked out by the sudden rush of attention. You know, because Pacific Rim attention from fanboys was pretty good, but there isn't anything on the level of this, you know, teen flick or teen romance movies as Twilight, as Robert Pattinson, I'm sure, can tell him. That's just a whole new level of celebrity. And there was even rumors that Universal had to hire bodyguards for him at a Sons of Anarchy event. So or maybe, as some people joked on the internet, he finally got around to reading the book. But anyway, and also, I have to say on a side note, some people said that Charlie Hunnam agreed to do the movie after having, quote-unquote, amazing chemistry with Dakota Johnson. So I guess maybe he was like, well, I'd really like to get paid to, like, have pornographic sex, you know, BDSM sex with Dakota Johnson, but if it's going to be this much trouble, it's not worth it. Because I'm sure he can find, you know, somebody in real life who is just a groupie to do the same thing. But he wouldn't be paid to do it. But anyway, I'm sure Charlie Hunnam has much more credibility than that. But anyway, although I have to say, I know I might be being a little tough on him, but I really do question the credibility of anybody who would take the role in the first place. But anyway, he's out. It was a near miss with torpedoing his career. I don't know if he could have survived 50 Shades of Grey and Pacific Rim as a 1-2 punch, unless 50 Shades of Grey, although I think even if 50 Shades of Grey was a huge hit, you would have had problems. But, you know, of course, the movie desperately is in need of a male lead now. Charlie Hunnam is the one who added some, you know, for all the discussion about what it did to his credibility, he offered credibility to the movie. He was certainly the biggest name attached to it. Dakota Johnson is really just, you know, Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith's daughter. I guess she's had some TV roles, but that's about it. And then, of course, you have Aaron Taylor Johnson's wife, who's directing it. So, I mean, I really, this movie, I mean, now there's some question as to whether or not it will make its 2015 release date. Let's hope it misses it for the sake of Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't think Guardians of the Galaxy wants to be entwined in all that. So, I think 50 Shades of Grey felt it had overcome a lot of hurdles. It had braved the fervor, the furor over casting Dakota Johnson and Charlie Hunnam, and now they're gonna have to get back into that. And they had, as they publicly admitted, they had a very hard time finding anyone who's willing to agree to do these roles. So the question is, who are they going to go to next? I suspect they'll be looking to replace very soon, because I don't think they want to leave the news cycle on such a bad note. I think they want to come back in strong and hard. Oh, 50 Shades of Grey, you're so much fun with your puns, and get back in the game. So that's the second story of the day. The third story of the day is Avatar Land. New details were released for what it's going to look like in Animal Kingdom. And basically they're going to have like a small world, the Avatar version, where you ride like a wicker boat around Pandora. It of course will be bioluminescent, which I think the strongest point about Avatar was the chance to go to Pandora. It was a sad news story that a number of moviegoers were, I believe, some committing suicide or contemplating suicide because they couldn't actually go to Pandora. So now it's being created. They had some mock-up pictures that were released. I've put a link in the video description to the article where you can see them. They're artist rendering. It looks pretty fantastic. So you're going to have that kind of boat ride. Apparently there's going to be a ride where you can simulate riding a banshee, which are those kind of dragon creatures that they ride in the film. I still feel it just feels very gimmicky to me. And I have my original concerns that I've been voicing in a few other places here on Beyond the Trailer, that I feel Disney is losing its identity. With Pixar, which has really taken over large portions of their park and many of their properties, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and now Avatar. I feel that what Walt built is really being built over. And I feel that, I saw some comments when these pictures debuted over the weekend for Avatar Land, that it would have been just nice if they had built the mythical creatures land that they had originally considered. But, Animal Kingdom is in bad shape. All the articles covering this have also mentioned the fact that people don't really particularly like going to Animal Kingdom. They feel there's nothing they can do there at night, so they're hoping that a whole land that lights up at night, Avatar Land, will make people want to go in the evening. They're also adding some kind of nighttime parade. And I also believe from some of the artists rendering, the Tree of Life in the center of Animal Kingdom will light up, which really extensively turns it into the tree from Avatar, the life tree that was in the whole middle of the planet. I'm a big Disney fan, huge Disney fan. And of course I will visit Avatar Land when it opens, or if we'll just call it Pandora, I'm not sure. I will certainly visit, but I'm not a big Animal Kingdom fan, and I believe the last few times I've been to Disney World, I haven't bothered to go over there. But again, some other people are pointing out, this is supposed to be a zoo primarily, but it's getting less and less like a zoo, and the animals are just going to be like, why am I even here still? So that's the three stories of the day. A question comes from Nardragon, and Nardragon wants to know, hi Grace, hello Nardragon, what is your view on changing characters' race and or gender in a movie adaptation of books, comics, TV shows, or games? In some cases it has worked in favor by adding diversity to the cast, but in some cases I think it may be damaging to a very well developed and loved character. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. If a character is very well established and well loved, I feel there's really no reason to change them. Although I would argue, though, with Wolverine, it's not a race or gender change, but they did make him, more leading man in terms of his appearance by casting Hugh Jackman instead of, someone short and hairy and burly like Wolverine is supposed to be in the comics. I would have preferred the latter. I'm a purist largely, especially because that's Wolverine is so well defined, as you said. But Hugh Jackman has turned out great. Everyone loves him, and he has in turn had an effect on Wolverine, especially in the Ultimate Universe. They morphed him to look more like that. So, but in general, if a character is doing fine, leave it alone, of course. I'm not even a fan of X-23 in the comics. I feel I don't need a female Wolverine. I think that's silly. I'm not a big fan of it at all, and I think the character's never been really very well developed beyond being a female Wolverine. Okay, but sometimes it is, I feel it does work. For instance, Perry White in Man of Steel. I think Perry White, generic character, never really, but he's not like he's Jim Gordon. He's really more of or Alfred Pennyworth. He's more of, like a tokeny character. what a choice, token. But I don't think that casting Lawrence Fishburne made it a token role. I think Lawrence Fishburne elevated it above that. I think that he did a really nice job adding some layers to Perry White, adding some compassion. And you know, even though he had very little to work with, a relationship with Lois Lane, I loved his office. I thought he seemed very in control of the Daily Planet. I feel often when Perry White is portrayed, he's portrayed kind of like, you know, like J. Jonah Jameson, like everything's out of control. I'm barely keeping the ship afloat. But I liked Lawrence Fishburne's portrayal very much, so much so that, you know, I've said I want to see more of it. So I think that was a great thing, and I think it energized the character. Now, I think like the biggest thing that this is referring to, and it might have been what you had in mind when you asked this question, is the idea of casting Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four reboot. This rumor isn't going away. In fact, there were stories over the weekend or last week that it's almost definite that he will be cast at this point. And they've been floating some other names around. And my problem isn't so much changing Johnny Storm, but that Sue Storm isn't changing along with him. I think that their brother-sister relationship is important. I think the Fantastic Four is all about family. So if you're going to change Johnny Storm, I feel you have to change Sue Storm as well. And it even annoyed me a little bit that Jessica Alba dyed her hair blonde and put in blue contacts to play Sue Storm in the original Fantastic Four. I mean, why cast Jessica Alba if you're not going to, use her Latina heritage, which she is herself very proud of, and just turn her into a generic actress when you could have found a blonde, blue-eyed actress who has some personality to take the role. I mean, it was very weird. It was like some weird middle ground. I guess it must have been like an executive suits argument. That's what it sounds like it's the result of, those results are usually horrible. And I think that Josh Trank, Michael B. Jordan's director from Chronicle, is probably the one pushing for him for Johnny Storm, and that's why it's going that way. And I'm sure some studio executive is like, well, you can change one character, but let's not change any more. So that might be where this is coming from. I think Johnny Storm, I have to say, I've never been a big Johnny Storm fan. I think beyond his playboy personality, I don't think he's particularly beloved. He's never really had his own title. I'm sure he's maybe had his own title at one point, but never for long running. And I think that Fantastic Four, none of the Fantastic Four characters have ever really stood out beyond just the group, which I think maybe might speak to some shortcomings of the book. I think that's not a good thing. So I'm all for changing Johnny Storm, actually. I feel it would be great. I would think it would give some new excitement. I think it would give some diversity to the Fantastic Four. But I think the Fantastic Four really needs to change things up if they're going to distance themselves from the absolutely horrible original 2 films that were made by Fox. So again, though, Sue Storm, they should also find an African-American actress to play her as well, because she's Johnny Storm's brother. So that's my feeling on the issue. I'm all for it. I wouldn't do it on a character that's already well established. I think you should go with that. But if you're going to do it all the way. So that's today's morning movie news. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you'll write down below any questions you'd like answered tomorrow and any stories you want to see covered as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.